Hi friends, Allie here. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the Farm Fresh pumpkin. As you see here, I have 3 different sizes in front of me, but these were made all using the exact same pattern. All I changed was the hook size and the yarn size. This pattern has a lot of fun texture to it and gives a unique spin on your standard crochet pumpkin. If you're ready to get started, let's head over to our supply list and find out what we need. For the small size pumpkin, you will need medium 4-weight yarn and a 4mm or G hook. For the medium-sized pumpkin, you will need a bulky 5-weight yarn and a 6mm or J hook. For a large-sized pumpkin, you will need super bulky 6-weight yarn and a 7mm hook. Other supplies include a yarn needle, scissors, a pumpkin stem, and fiberfill stuffing. We are going to begin with a chain of 16. Now you can adjust your chain length as ever long as you want. This is going to determine the height of the pumpkin. One thing you want to be sure to do is just make sure your chain is an even number. So we are going to chain 16, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. For row 1, we are going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. So there's our first chain, there's our second chain. So slip stitch into the second chain from the hook, and then we're going to half double crochet into the next chain. So for this pattern, we are going to be using the even moss stitch, and that's when you slip stitch into the first stitch and then half double crochet into the next stitch, and you repeat that all the way across and you end on a slip stitch. So we're going to slip stitch into the next chain, and then half double crochet into the next chain. We're just going to repeat that all the way across. Slip stitch into the next chain, half double crochet into the next chain. I'm on to the last chain here, and I'm going to work a slip stitch. And at the end of row 1, our stitch count is at 15. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And then for rows 2 all the way to 42, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to slip stitch into the first stitch and half double crochet into the next stitch. And then repeat that across. Slip stitch into the next stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch. Just onto the last stitch, and I'm going to work a slip stitch into the last stitch, and our stitch count is going to remain at 15. And so we're just going to repeat row 2 all the way to the end of row 42. You can already see the little bit of texture that's poking through, and that's from working our half double crochets into each row. You work the next half double crochet into the one from the previous row. So we're just going to repeat this all the way to the end of row 42. If you want to adjust the width of your pumpkin at all, you can either make your row count more or less. That's just up to you. But one thing you want to keep in mind is make sure that you end on an even number road. So we are going to chain 1 and turn, and we're now onto row 3. So we are just going to repeat what we did for row 2. Slip stitch into the first stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, half double crochet into the next. And we're going to repeat that all the way till we reach the end of row 42. So I'm just going to continue on, and I'll catch up with you guys at the end of row 42. So I've just reached the end of row 42, so this is what we're looking like so far. Now if you want to make this any longer, that will make your pumpkin wider, and you can just continue going on, repeating row 2 for as long as you'd like to get the size that you want. But I'm going to stop here. So I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to fold this over, so we're going to bring the 2 short sides of the pumpkin together. I'm just going to turn it. And then we're going to slip stitch both of these ends together. So we're going to work in the stitches from our last row and then also into the original chain that we worked. So we're just going to work 15 slip stitches across. So I'm just on the last slip stitch now. So now we've reached the other side, and now we have this seam here. So we're going to flip this inside out so the seam is on the inside. There we go. So now this is the outside of our pumpkin. And any ends you have, like from the starting chain, you can just tuck in on the inside. So now I'm going to chain 1. And as you can see, I have the opening on the top and the bottom here. So now we are going to work around, this is going to be the bottom of the pumpkin. So now we are going to half double crochet 2 together all the way around. So we're going to be working in each row that we worked first. So these are all of our rows. So working in the end of each row, we're going to half double crochet 2 together all the way around. I'm just on the last half double crochet 2 together here. So when we reach back at the beginning, we're just going to slip stitch into the very first stitch that we made here and chain 1. And now we're going to tie off our yarn, and we're going to make sure that we leave a long tail because we have a lot of weaving around to do. So I'm going to leave about a 24-inch tail. And then I'm just going to pull with my hook, pull that through, and pull that tight. So now I'm going to grab my yarn needle and put my yarn through. And then working into those half double crochet 2 together stitches, we're just going to weave in and out. So in through and then back, and we're just going to do that all the way around. Just weave your yarn in and out through those last stitches that we worked. just back at the beginning now. So now we're going to pull that tight. So we're going to pull that tight, and that's going to close up that bottom hole that we have. So pull it nice and tight. Be sure not to snap your yarn though. So pull it nice and tight, and then we're going to tie a knot here. So just at the bottom, keeping your yarn nice and tight. You're just going to tie a few knots to keep that secure. Okay, so got that tight. So now we're going to keep this yarn attached. We're going to take it and we're going to go through that bottom hole and bring that up through the center. So there we go, we just have our yarn right through the center here. So now we're going to grab our fiber fill stuffing and we're just going to stuff our pumpkin. We're going to try our best to keep our yarn here, our yarn tail, just in the center, and we're going to work our stuffing just all the way around it, trying to keep our yarn as centered as we can. So just grab your filling. Okay, I have mine stuffed as much as I would like it. You can add as much or as little as you want. It all depends on how stiff or how squishy you want it. So I have mine how I would like it. So now what I'm going to do, still with our yarn attached with our needle, we are going to weave through all of the stitches around here. So these are all the ends and beginnings of the rows that we worked originally. So just working in and out all the way around, we're going to do that just to cinch up our top here. So it doesn't really matter where you start. You're just going to go in one stitch, back through the other. You don't have to be too precise. I work every row to every second row. Doesn't really matter too much. So just work all the way around, weaving in and out. So I'm just coming back to the beginning now. So when you've worked all the way around, you're just going to pull tight, and we're going to cinch up this top hole here. Oops. Just pull tight, make sure not to snap your yarn. So there we go. So we cinched up our top. So we have a small hole in the top. So you just want to make sure that you leave a large enough hole so that whatever you're using for a stem can stick through there. So I'm going to just leave it like that so there's a big enough hole for the stem to stick through. So now I'm going to poke my needle all the way down through that bottom center hole. Just like that, and pull tight, and then I'm going to cinch that down. So that kind of brings that top center part cinched down a little bit more to give it more of that pumpkin shape. And then I'm just going to tie off to the bottom. So with a lot of pumpkin patterns, you'll see people wrap it around like this. You can also do that. I'm not going to do that with this one because I think the ribbing on it already gives it that effect. But if you want to do that more so to give it that segmented look, you can just wrap this yarn back around like this and back through the center and repeat that all the way around to give it the more defined segments. I'm going to leave mine as is though. So I'm going to tie off to the bottom of my pumpkin and just securing it with a few knots right on the bottom. And just making sure that you keep your yarn tight so that you have the cinching down. So I'm just going to make a few knots here. And then when I have it secure as I like, I'm just going to weave in my end just at the bottom of the pumpkin. Okay, and then I'm just going to grab my scissors and cut off my yarn. And I'll flip it the right way. So this is what we have so far. You might need to kind of squish it around to get your stuffing where you want it. And now to finish off our pumpkin, if you have a pumpkin stem that you want to use, I have just some sticks here. So we had a fallen branch in our yard, so I just cut off some pieces of it, and then I washed these with soapy water and an abrasive sponge and just got off all the dirt, and then I let them dry out a bit. So these are my sticks here that I'm going to use, but you can really use whatever you'd like. I've seen people use cinnamon sticks and those look really cute. I've also seen people use scrap leather and you just fold it over like a loop. So you can really use whatever you have handy, and this is just a really easy way if you don't have anything else, like you find a fallen branch in your yard and use it. So I'm just going to use this one here, and then you can just stick it right through that top center hole like so. Now if you want this to be a little bit more secure, because I can easily pull this in and out, you might want to use a dab of hot glue or fabric glue. That will help it be secure. Seeing as I'm just putting these in my own house, I'm not shipping them or anything, I'm just going to keep that as is. You can also add little fake leaves or berries. You can really dress it up as you like. I've also seen people tie a little piece of twine around it, and that looks cute too. So I think these are really fun to, you can be unique with it and add your own little touch to it. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this Farm Fresh pumpkin pattern. Thank you so much for following along. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram and Facebook. You can find this pattern and many more free patterns on my blog, whoshomemade.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.